Hello, hello, welcome everybody. So I finally am going to do this. I've been kind of poked and prodded to do it for a while, and then when I was going to do it one day, I was like, "No, you don't have to do it," and I'm like, "Come on." But this one, as the title says, is going to be around my kind of awakening or opening to faith, spirituality, and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to start in like chronological order, I guess, and go before my so called awakening, right? Or whatever you want to call it. If you don't like that word, then I don't know what you use, but that's what I'm going to use for it, for argument's sake. And then maybe from the awakening up to here, solely based on faith, religion, or spirituality, or like ETs, stuff that's just happened that was really strange in my past. So this could be a long video, but I'll try to like I don't know, make it as short as possible. So we'll start from the beginning. My family didn't follow any religion strongly, right? We had like Jesus up in the corner behind the TV and a picture of 7 or 9 archangels. They all looked kind of very similar. It was like an old 70s painting, which was pretty valuable, I think. But anyway, I say that because like my family and I, or like obviously me, with my family, didn't grow up in like very wealthiness at all. I didn't even realize until I got to a certain age, and I went and visited other schools and stuff that we were like my family was below the poverty line at one point or very early on. Didn't feel like that, but yeah, no, you kind of see it once you like experience other things in other places like hotels or something. Like that was like, well, it wasn't even a hotel I remember visiting, but it was like a motel. And that was like, oh wow, this is like not glamorous, but it was just like it was so much fun because it was like so different to what I was used to. Anywho, we had like anyway had a good upbringing, I would say. Grew up in a very small town in New Zealand. The town had, I think, probably less than this, but it probably had about 3,000 people. So I don't know. I would say that's very small. New Zealand's pretty small, right? It's not a big country, not a lot of population. I think they've clocked over 4 million now. Back then, I remember hitting around 3 million when I was younger. It doesn't really matter too much anyway. It's like, it's a small country away from a lot of people, a lot of places. Um, I would say a beach country because it's kind of thin and long and it's like, you know, beaches all over side. So I kind of grew up on the beach or near the beach, and that was part of my upbringing was nature, the beach side. And when you're a kid, you don't super appreciate it, but you do when you get older, I guess. I guess I kind of did enjoy it and didn't. There's like pluses and minuses, right? From having I mean, it's different now, especially with people kind of getting out of housing situations and just traveling or going on the road or going into the bush or trees and building a house or something like that, right? It's quite different these days. But back then, there's kind of like pluses and minuses. I'm glad I grew up in the country. I got to see the stars, which I don't really see now that I live in Australia. You do a little bit, but it's like a very different picture if you go to the outback, right? You'll see a huge amount of stars. But anywho, I've kind of got very off track. That's going to happen. That's just how I am, I guess. But yeah, growing up, traditional wise, didn't really do any religious stuff. Like I said, Jesus was up there in some red robe. There was a picture of him too with the heart thing, like the I don't know heart thing, and like it's kind of like a heart, kind of like near his chest, like coming out. I don't know. It's not gruesome. It's like I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just like I don't know. It's just a picture. I probably will try to flash one up so you know what I'm talking about if I remember. Anywho, what time is that for? It's actually 4 minutes and 44 seconds on this. I'll probably edit bits out, of course, but that's kind of funny talking about Jesus. So that was there, and didn't really do anything super religious. It was kind of enforced at my primary school because remember this was back in the day. This was like in the early 90s. So fluoro was coming in. Because I remember having fluoro this and fluoro that, which I actually really liked because it was high vibrant colors, but it didn't look too, it wasn't abnormal for a boy to have these flashy kind of like colors back then. Like I said, different time now. But anywho, um, then what else happened after that? So I got like christened, I think, and I think my parents were discussing whether I go to church or not. Mum wasn't really interested in taking me, and dad was, but wasn't committed to doing it. So that didn't happen, and I'm kind of glad for that. I don't think I would have thrived in that kind of structure. It actually may have made things slightly worse. I have no idea, obviously, but it just feels energetically like that was a good miss, let's just say. However, like I said, at schools, at primary school, it was enforced unless you had some other belief. So usually people that were like in Jehovah's Witness, they would go to like this room. Don't worry, they were safe. It wasn't bad. And they would just do something else, and we would do Bible class type things during school. So I still got exposed to it, but without all the, all the kind of like anger or brimstone or like, to me, negative stuff, right? I don't think they would have done that to talk to like that to kids, but I don't know. The interactions I had growing up with like that kind of belief system wasn't great, personally, but if it worked for you, it worked for you. So yeah, so I learned about certain things. I remember little parts. Everyone, I think they tried to teach us Noah's Ark type stuff, really fun, because it was like children, liking animals going onto boats, saving animals, whatever. But that I wasn't super interested in. The bits that I really, really was interested in, I asked my my poor little old lady, who's probably passed now, rest in peace, whoever you were, I can't remember your name. I was honestly like 6, 7. I asked her a lot about the killings, because they still taught us this for whatever reason. I don't really know the Bible so much, but like when they paint the doors or something and they didn't kill the firstborn male child or whatever it was, because an angel or a god was killing them, something like that. I don't know, it sounds pretty graphic, but I remember asking my teacher like about it and being like, what, how, why was this okay, this kind of stuff. And it was kind of like, God's will, this is just the way it is, mysterious ways type answers. And I didn't really get any gratification or clarity on those kind of things. And so I just kind of dismissed it as like unimportant to me. Only one other part which really interested me was when, I can't remember who it was, maybe Moses or someone was out in the desert, and there was a talking tree. Loved that tree, drew pictures of that tree, whatever it was that burning bush talking to him. Which sounds kind of wild, right? But like that was interesting to me. So that I can vividly remember. I remember doing like a coloring book and coloring in the tree and drawing the tree burning, talking. Like I thought that was really cool. Didn't think it was cool in like that's really cool, a talking tree, but just in like something about it was really interesting to me. I have no idea what he said. I still don't even know. I probably should look it up, right? Now that I'm talking about it, I probably will. But anyway, I'm assuming it was like hopefully something nicer than the killing of children. But yeah, so then getting older, I realized that I'm not really interested in any type of structured religion because most of it that I saw was very anti things that I was pro. So I remember there was a church group which felt very money orientated, right? Which I wouldn't say is the standard. I think this was more of like a very toxic type situation. But anyway, they kind of used the words and like cherry picked what was in the Bible to kind of go against certain people for their sexuality and that kind of stuff. And it really didn't resonate at all in any way. So I kind of flipped to being kind of anti-religion, especially Christian and other denominations at that time, which isn't the best way. But when you're like, 16, 17, 18, 1920, like it was going on for many, many years, it kind of breaks you down in a way because like, I remember watching a movie where it was a bit of a probably trigger warning before I go into it, but I won't really talk too much to it. But at the end of the like near the end of the movie, the mother has lost her child, right, to a situation, and then she's like talking to preachers and that kind of stuff, and she's begging pretty much, when you speak, remember a child is listening. What you say, the words you speak out have power, and that's very true. And those kind of, when you're getting bashed down by your parents, by religion, that kind of stuff. This isn't for me, this is in the movies. My parents were very good. Well, they did their very best, let's just say that. They're definitely not perfect, but neither am I. So yeah, we get along quite well though. But anywho, a child is listening is a very strong thing. What you say, people can, like, it's easy to say when you're an adult, you can dismiss this if it doesn't resonate, right? But when you hear it, it still can impact you and it still can have weight. And especially if you look up to that kind of like figure, or they're seen as like something important. And if you're going through a whole learning, you'll learn that what they're saying you don't have to resonate with, but it can take a long time and a lot of heartache and a lot of challenge. So if you're going to kind of like say something, which is what she was saying, was pretty much speak from heart, speak love, speak truth, rather than anti this, negative this, brimstone that, if you don't do what I say, you go to hell type thing. That's just not it. In my book anyway, if you believe in all that and you want to go down that route, I don't know how you've got to here, basically, but welcome. Just be mindful. I would just say to you, remember a child is listening. And even if they're not a child, they're an adult, they're in a child's listening. And that can be, heartfelt and difficult to hear, especially if it's someone important that says something that you can't, that kind of goes against your existence, right? Goes against who you are. But that happens, and we go through whatever learning we have to go through to move beyond that, to heal that, to forgive ourselves or others or whatever it is we go through. Millions of different ways, many different opportunities and paths to take with that. All right, so then we move on to my 20s. Wasn't religious, wasn't faith belief, didn't really even follow any kind of like quick, because I think this is a stepping stone, and I think they were trying to push me into this, and I was like, that doesn't even resonate. I thought my door almost opened. That was really weird. If something like that does happen, sorry. Sometimes there's been weird noises in here today, and I'm home alone. Well, besides a cat, but she's like, once she eats, she's just snoozing for the rest of the day until the afternoon when she wants more food. But yeah, so I didn't have any faith-based things, and then I got to the point of wanting to, there was, I think guidance or guides were trying to push me, again, still not even believing in guides, none of that. Guides were kind of trying to push me into self-help type stuff, those kind of things, because I think those are stepping stones, really. And it's inner work, right? Self-belief and stuff. And usually it's because they want to manifest money or this or that or the other. But really, if you look at like the underlying of all the like surface level stuff and you just go into the core, it's about reprogramming, I guess, your mind in a way that helps you get into positive energy, get into positive mindsets. So those ones actually do work. And that was something that I kind of looked into a bit, but not as much. And maybe that was perfect. Maybe I just needed to pay attention to it and leave it for a year or 2, 5 or 10. It was just, it kind of popped up, and my mindset was like, okay, I want to manifest a positive, amazing life, right? So that makes sense. But it wasn't classed as manifestation. It was talked about like self-help, self-care, overcoming like self-doubts and fears and that kind of stuff, which really does play into a lot of how I will read now. I feel, looking at it, but I don't mind going into what other people might call as like woo woo, not for the sake of being woo woo, right? It's more of for the sake of just this is what I hear, this is what the energy feels like. If I say the energy feels like Mother Mary, that could be your mother, right? It could be a strong feminine feeling. It could be a different deity or an angel. It could be something else. It might even just be the energy of divine feminine energy or a beautiful color of like, I'm getting like pink for some reason, like fuchsia kind of like color, or even like a rose pink, like a soft pink. I don't know why that's coming through, but maybe that's just someone needed a message there of like family, loved ones, heartfelt, unconditional love coming through. Okay. Don't really want to get hijacked by source, but it happens. So anyway, and yeah, so I got like introduced to a little bit of that, and then I got to a point of a lot of challenges, especially during COVID. My dad got sick, and I couldn't get back home to New Zealand, which was very stressful. So I channeled all this energy into artwork, and I created some artwork, which was nice. Like I hadn't done that for a long time, and I don't really like feel like I'm like an artist, right, or anything like that. But I did enjoy doing it. It was just something to kind of bypass time and do that. I'm very introverted too, so the COVID kind of thing didn't worry me too much. But with all the fear and stuff on the news, I was taking in a lot of that energy, and taking in a lot of that mindset and fear, and it really did kind of impact me. So I took some time off work, going more down the track. Now we're at 2022, and one of my friends started to do read tarot, and I was like, going back now actually a bit. I did have some experiences with like sleepwalking, sleep paralysis, seeing ghosts, demons, and stuff like that. Well, I don't know what they were. They were like shadow people, but I think they were guides. I just didn't recognize them. And if I was opening my eyes and actually seeing this shadowy looking figure. To me, that's scary, right? And hearing stuff. So I think I shut a lot of that down. And I forgot all about it in my 20s, and then we're getting to my 30s. And then, also going back, there's some other stories, but I think I'll just stick with this first because this is going to go on for too long. And then it got to the point of, where am I? 30s, right? Yeah, I took some time off work. I had already gone part-time because I had like a very difficult situation with some people. And I was like, I'm just going to go part-time. I've kind of like had enough money to be okay to survive, like, let's say. Being part-time, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I putting myself through all this work to get here, right? And so then I took some more time off, and then that was with after COVID. Like, I think it just drained me of a lot of my energy. Not really COVID, but just the situation what was happening with my family, and just life in general. It was just a bit of a whitewash. So I took a whole year off. And so during that year, I think this was all pre-planned, honestly, the way that it all went down. But I had some interesting experiences in Bali too, with like, got very, very, very sick, and they were like, oh, it's probably Bali belly. But I was like, came back and I was like out for a month, like probably be a bit longer. And then I figured out, oh, that's why. It's because there was something happening now. Like, now I can look back and see, oh yeah, it was something spiritual or whatever was happening there, that I was kind of purging out. But it was a long time. They did a lot of tests. They couldn't figure it out. So they just assumed it was Bali belly. And they were like, you need to drink water. And I was like, that would be good if I could keep it, right? Couldn't keep anything. But anyway, won't go into gruesome details there. So moving on, in the middle of my break, or like near the beginning, we had a flood. That was a pain. Then we had like stuff in the house go wrong. It was a lot, honestly. There was a lot going on. It wasn't great. But anyway, fast forward to my friends starting to read tarot cards. And that reminded me of like, I was always really interested in the medium shows. There was like Colin Fry, I think it was, or some British guy. Did some readings. I think he's passed now. Anyway, there was like a show on TV and a few other things. I remember tarot cards, and I was just like, because I didn't really believe it, I was just like, well, it's not going to help me, right? It's just a game kind of thing. Looked like it's just a game. Anyway, he started to read and he was reading on Twitch, and I was streaming video games on Twitch at the time. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll go watch him and support him, right? Even though I think it's like a whole lot of hooey. Um, and then I watched him and I listened to the readings, and I wasn't like blown away or anything. I was just like, oh yeah, whatever. These are nice messages, right? They're just interesting. They're not hurting anyone. Um, there's no harm, no foul. And then he raided someone, I think. Or I started to look at the tarot category and I found some people from Australia. I found this girl in Canada, and I was watching and I was just like, there's something to this. And then they started to talk about things like fairies and angels and all this stuff. And I was like, I was like, oh, here we go. I was like, and so I'd kind of comment a little bit snarky and stuff. It's like, you know, and I think they picked up on it, but it was like kind of ignored. And I was like, whatever, it's fine. And then I just kept getting hooked into the streams, and I was starting to watch them. And I watched, mostly the girl in Canada because she would stream like 3 or 4 times a week. And so I was just watching and watching and watching, getting readings, listening to the readings, and I was like, these are actually pretty interesting. And it wasn't like I was starting to believe it all. It just kind of like opened the door. And I think the more I watched it and the more I got more information. Also, side note, I was before that, maybe 2 years before that, I was starting to listen to ASMR. ASMR was like popping off, right? With a lot of stuff, and that got it like, and I'd listen, and that kind of transitioned into Reiki. And I'd never heard of Reiki, didn't know what it was, didn't believe it, but I was like, this feels good, right? And I shouldn't be fighting something that feels good. And so I was like, this feels good. It doesn't feel negative. It doesn't feel bad. The voices are kind, soft, and like it's pleasant. So what's the harm, right? So I kind of like was having mental gymnastics with myself about all this and trying to make sure that I wasn't just dismissing something without looking into it. Because I had already had gone through processes, I think, with that religious stuff, with like being dismissed without being like even seen as a person or seen as something, right? With like other like religion and stuff. So if I was doing that, then I was kind of no better than them. So I was like, let's be open. It's fine if that's wrong, or if they're wrong. If they're happy and living their life, it's fine. So I was already starting to get into that. So then fast forward to 2022, some stuff was starting to go down. And so I felt like, not in my real life, but just like in this whole spiritual space. And it almost didn't feel like it was all crap anymore. It felt like it was all, there was something there. And I don't know exactly what happened, but I started to meet up or connect with like spirit guides and things like that. And one came through who was very she was wild, right? Like the person who was doing the reading, because that was online on Twitch, and there was no fees or anything, so I didn't feel like I was going to waste time or money, because I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I wouldn't have even opened up to all this. I started watching her, and she pulled in a guide who was kind of very much my attitude and mentality in my 20s. Very like headstrong, very like everything will just work out, but also very much like sassy, angry, kind of feisty, that kind of thing. And I really went through that in my 20s because I was kind of annoyed at many things that I had tolerated in the past, because I think when I was really younger, I was very soft, kind, and very open, I would say. Very still headstrong and sassy, right? That didn't change, because I can still remember a time when I was 4 and a lady told me, why wasn't I at school? And I turned to her and I said, I go to kindy, and turned to my mum and said, what's it to her? You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty sassy at 4 years old. So I can't say I was like an angel or anything at 4. I definitely was like still that, but I was generally pretty kind and soft and nice to people. And then I kind of got broken down, I think, through bullying in school. Anyway, and then attitudes. And so by the time I got to my 20s, I was kind of reversing that and making sure I wasn't getting kind of like put down or anything. I was getting ahead of the game, which it's not the best thing to seesaw so much with that, but like that was my life, right? That's what happened. So when she came through, I could really resonate with why I felt certain things and had certain things, because she probably was like my main guide. through it all and was very fiery. It was interesting because like the way she explained her was short, fiery, and I'm very tall and not very fiery, right? But I could definitely get those vibes and flares coming through at times. So yeah, and then fast forwarding a little bit more, I started to get into it a little bit. Wasn't practicing anything. I was just like sitting there thinking about it. And then something happened where I went through, I would say, a spiritual awakening, which is kind of interesting because I think people go out and find it all in the outside. This was an inside job. Stuff was coming up from me that was like old wounds, old fears, old stuff. And they were literally like impacting my day to day. And so I had no choice. It feels like I had no choice, but I had to go in, deal with this, and kind of like come to some kind of forgiveness of self with it. Sometimes the forgiveness of other people. Not to say what they did was okay, but like to just clear it out and get over it. The stuff where how it felt through particular like race things that had occurred to me and different stuff. I know I'm very pale, but being from New Zealand, I'm actually like a very probably more of a mix of Māori and what we call Pākehā, which is like native, not native, which is like I guess British, right? Whoever came over to colonize. And I would say I'm probably more on the Māori side, blood-wise, due to how it all works in the family. I've looked at the family tree and it's like, whatever. But anywho, so not that that's super important, but I had to clear out some of that anger and angst against it, because while that can be good for passionate things and to turn it around and start to channel it into projects and stuff like, to get equality, it also can burn you out and lead to fears and like expectations that people are already coming for you when they're not, right? It's just like it's not a great thing. Anyway, so I had to clear some of that out, some of like abusive things that had occurred in the past and things like that. I had to like kind of like relive them, which was not great. I had to go find an inner child, and I was doing a meditation, and he was like between these two walls, which was like one world and one world, and he was down in here still reliving what he was feeling. And I was like I was literally like, oh, you don't need to be down here. We've already gone through that, and this is not in our reality anymore. And I kind of lifted him up, and in a meditation took him into my heart space and just kind of like let him run wild in this like magical world. So it felt like an integration. It wasn't like I was leading him somewhere to just like run away, but like it was an integration and letting him like live his like good life. He didn't need to be in that darkness anymore. So there was a lot of weird kind of wacky things happening. And then I felt like, okay, and I was about to awaken, I think. And it's a slow process, but this felt like the very point of the like climax or turning point. I was just sitting on my computer and it felt like something was about to happen. So I physically got up and started running. I probably looked like a crazy person at like 1 a.m. through the house. And then it felt like I got lightning shocked. And I jumped and I ran into the bed and hugged my partner and just stayed there and was like, I don't know, it felt really weird. It was kind of like I knew something was happening, so I was trying to run away from it. I guess because like, I guess if you're not awake, it's kind of like not easy. It's definitely not easy. It's better to, in my mind anyway, for me, it's better to be awake. For other people, whatever, different lives, different kind of situations. But it felt like if I did wake up, I would have to go through something, or I'd have to go through more of different things. I was kind of, in my mindset, before I woke up, set to be like, okay, cool, I've done what I wanted in life. I'm just going to sit here and cruise to the end of it. Like, I'm still going to do things, but I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I'll work here, get this job, make some money, go on holidays, eat, have like stability in house and blah, 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 and everything will be fine. So it was kind of like done pretty much. I knew from when I was very young that I wasn't going to have children. And that didn't really change throughout. If it changes, it changes, but I'm at the age where I'm very sure. And I was like, I remember being 5 telling my parents that I wasn't going to have children. And they were laughing and they're like, oh, you'll change your mind as you get older. And then they'd ask me at like 8, 12, 13, and it never changed. And it hasn't changed because it just felt like that's not what I wanted to do. And if people want to do that, perfect, do it, right? Do it if you want to. Don't do it because someone else wants you to. or you think that that's your job as a male, woman, whatever your last name is, family, or you do you, basically. If you do anything for other people, you'll perpetually be in a cycle of disappointment and unhappiness or lack of fulfillment, right? So that was a very sidetrack. So that happened, and then over the next few months, I realized I got into, I guess once I woke up anyway, I'm not going to say everybody, once I woke up, because I woke up in a way that wasn't like a near-death experience or something batshit crazy, right? In my mind, fairies, angels, and all that kind of stuff, aliens, all made sense. So like once I hit that point, once I went through that, it was like, oh, all this makes sense. I was kind of like, my ego was kind of like pushed aside for a bit while this happened. It was like, all this just makes sense. All of this is real. I don't even need to prove it to myself or others. It's just annoying. And then something flicked up in my mind from Constantine, the movie, where I can't remember. Constantine's talking to someone, and he's like, Constantine's like, well, I do believe in God, right? And he was like, there's a difference, like the angel or whoever said to him back, like he said, there's a difference between believing and knowing. These people have faith without knowing what all the truth is, right? They just have faith. And Constantine was like, now, he had traveled between the two. He didn't really believe, he just knew that it was real. So, it's kind of like saying to us, are plants real? Well, it doesn't really matter if you believe in plants, right? We all know they are. But if you don't know that they are, you could still believe them if you would live down like in a hovel underground or something and there was nothing plant-wise. But you get like fruit. You could just assume that fruit just is always around, right? You don't know where it comes from. You just believe. So it's kind of like that situation, and that popped up in my mind anyway. And the reason why I'm saying it is because it felt like, what did it feel like? It felt like, oh, now I know, right? I kind of believed before, I didn't really, but now I know. So I was like, is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know, but whatever, it is what it is. And here I am doing this. So I got into probably I would say high ego. It was very like light. And I got to face a lot of the ego and shadow and stuff like that. So I'm not saying it didn't go through a dark night of soul. It definitely was, and definitely has been bits and pieces throughout. And I've avoided some of them because it was just people generally dragging you into a particular situation. I'm not going to blame them. I had an option to move out of it or avoid it, and that's exactly what I did. And I wasn't going to get pulled into any drama, rubbish by anybody. And when it's happened, I've just let it go because I'm not interested in it. They can kind of play. I usually talk about it. Do you want to play in the mud, or do you want to like rise above and move to a direction that's more fulfilling, helpful, happy, joy, and blessed, right? But don't play in the mud if you don't want to. If you want to play in the mud, go down there. Go into like get into like the real earthy stuff, right? Because it can be a learning opportunity. I just don't have time for it anymore, and I was kind of done anyway by that time. And I was just going to cruise, and then this happened, and I was like, well, I'm not going to cruise then. And then I was still playing games, but I was getting to a point where I was very over a certain game, and I was just like, I don't know what to do with this channel anymore. I'm just going to play a few games occasionally and just ride it out, right? Just do the mundane thing, which like was what you do. And then I switched over to tarot. Like after the awakening, it's like, I know what I need to do. I need to start tarot. I need to kind of work with on my relationship as well and improve that. Work on myself, my self-care, self-love, that kind of stuff. A lot of stuff. And it's just like, it was very easy and clear of what I needed to do. So I started doing, excuse me, I started doing readings on Twitch. And it was good. Like it was like, oh wow, I can actually do this. I didn't really know the cards. I didn't know the meanings of the cards. I didn't do tarot at first because I didn't connect with tarot, so I wasn't going to do it. I went with oracle cards, and that made a huge amount of sense. I changed my Twitch username to Blue Light Oracle because that felt correct, right? Blue being my favorite color, just by the way, is why I've like named myself Blue Light Oracle. This is going on for way too long, but I'm just going to keep going. Sorry about the throat. It's just I don't talk a lot. So when I am talking, my body's like, oh, whoa, we have to adjust to that. But yeah, so that's basically it. And then throughout that journey, I've learned lots of things. I met guides, I've done meditations. There was a spirit that came through last night, and I was like, who is this? And it was a saint, and it was like one I'd never. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I had to learn about who the archangels were and all this stuff because there was points of like weird things happening, which I may go into in another video. Right? I just want to talk about this gloss over the going from here to here of how I got there. So to me, it seems very wild going from atheism to spiritual. Right? I would say spiritual would be what I would class. If the people still call that atheism, fine. Like I don't really care. I don't care about labels. Labels are just not even like important to me at this point in any kind of aspect of life. But if it helps other people, perfect. You know, stick a label on your head and be done with it. But yeah, I don't think there was anything else. I ended up obviously going into YouTube, and I've done videos here, and I've had a lot of trouble with sound and a lot of trouble with like quality of the video. Right? I could probably use my phone more. That would be better, but I'm just gonna go with like it is what it is at this time, and what it is at this time is helpful and it works. So I'm happy with that. I'm quite happy how it's going at the moment. Yeah, so I think that's basically it. But yeah, it became annoying. Does that mean I know everything? Absolutely not. Obviously, after the peak of the awakening, it petered down, and I thought that I was becoming less connected and less this, less that. But no, it was just like, you can't stay up there, right? If you stay up there, then you may as well not be here. So you're here and there, and you're kind of like trying to find a good balance between the physical world and actually living in the physical world, and also being up in the higher realms, because it's amazing up there, right? But it's cool when you find slices of heaven on earth, I would say, which is kind of funny because that's my human design. If you know anything about human design, my incarnation cross is the right angle cross of Eden, which pretty much is essentially is coming here to find your slice of heaven on earth. And when you find pieces of it, or experience like maybe even a minute or two of it, it's really, really nice. And it just helps you get into appreciation of what's on offer and what's the point of coming here. But the music stopped, which is funny. So I think that's probably going to be me. Yeah, I guess I'll leave you with like one last message of, hey, everyone goes through a different awakening experience. Some are quite violent and crazy, right? I don't know if that's planned in their contracts when they come down, but it's how it happens, and you kind of have to work through it, live with it. But I don't think I had a totally crazy awakening, but doesn't mean that, you know, one aspect means the whole life was easy. Life is life. You have to really work on every single little part of it that really impacts your now, especially if it doesn't need to be there. But take your time with it. Don't be too heavy or hard on yourself, and look after yourself and others is really important, because, you know, sometimes looking after yourself is disconnecting from others, and sometimes looking after them is disconnecting from letting them disconnect from you, or both, right? There's no like one way is right and the other way is wrong. You got to own and accept your part in everything that you do and say. But I did like that little point that I was talking about with I was quoted on the movie, Remember a Child is Listening. You know, even when you're talking to other people and how you talk to them, you know, remember they're listening. If you're trying to do it to upset them, then ask yourself why that is important to you. Where's your hurt coming from? Where's your root causes? Because it might actually pay to work on those aspects to improve your health, relationship, and happiness and peace. Okay, well, it's been a long video. Hope you've enjoyed. It's nice to actually, like, you know, talk to you guys. Hopefully you don't mind seeing me now instead of my hands. But yeah, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.